Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Kelly. I work for the Money and Pension Service, that we're going to call MAP. Okay, it was this very, very long title, so you'll hear me call us MAPs at various points today. I brought a slide deck with me today just to talk through some of the work upon. I know there's a few people in the room that I've already spoken to who know me from past events. So the slide deck will be shareable after the event in terms of everything that we talked about today. And one of the things I'd just like to say right from the get-go is everything that we provide, the Money and Pension Service, the resources, access to our contact centre, queries that people might put into us, it's all provided for free. So we're an arm's length government department, and we're related to the Department of Work and Pensions. But just one of the things to point out, we don't pay benefits. We'll give information, we'll give guidance, but we don't provide or pay benefits. Scott very kindly has said he'll do the next slides, please, bit. So I've got about 12 slides I'm going to run through with you today. Thanks, Scott. And you'll see me take... Oh, Scott. Sorry.
Scott from now on.
Scott from now on. Right, that's a good start to the afternoon, isn't it, everyone? Okay. So, and I'm not the... I'm a little bit blind as a bat, so you will see me take my glasses on and off today as I have a look at my notes. So, what I said I'd start off with is just a bit of an introduction to who we are as a brand and what the Money and Pension Service do. I know not everybody, I've spoken to quite a few people this afternoon, I know not everybody knows who we are. So, we have two brands. Money and Pension Service, MAPS, is our business-to-business brand. That's what's on my business card, I give it to you today, that's on my email when I send it to Christine. That's who we are as an organisation. But that's quite a formal title, it's quite a formal name, and it's quite off-putting for a lot of UK consumers, a lot of people in society, a lot of people in communities to use. So we have a different, separate brand called Money Helper, which many of you will probably see. And the reason it's Money Helper is it says what we do on the tin, really. There's about 500 colleagues who work for the Money and Pension Service right across the UK, and Money Helper is our consumer-facing part of that part of the organisation. So if you click onto our website, it's called Money Helper. And Money Helper provides lots of free, impartial advice, lots of content, lots of resources, lots of tools that you can use with people who are struggling with any sort of query that they might have. That could be a debt query, it could be a financial education query, it could be a money management query, it could be a pension query. So whatever type of query you have, that website has about 300 pages worth of content, and it's updated and it's live every day of the year. So what we mean by that, currently our head office is in London. We're about to move in the next 6 to 9 months to Bedford. We're going to move outside London as part of government departments doing that. But we have a team of colleagues, of men and women, who every day of the year work on that website. So if Rishi, as the Prime Minister, stands up in the House of Commons this afternoon and says, I'm changing a benefit rate, or I'm changing a tax rate, or I'm changing something that would impact UK society and UK consumers, that website will get changed as fast as we possibly can. I can't promise you if Rishi does it at 3 o'clock, that by 10 past 3 it'll be up there on the website, but what I can promise you is usually it's changed within 24 hours. So for those of you who have not seen the website today, one of the things I'd encourage you to do is, not necessarily this afternoon, but perhaps tomorrow, or if you're having sandwiches in your lunch break tomorrow, just have a look at the website and see what it can do, and see what kind of information is on there. We work alongside a lot of other organisations. I know there's advice in the room. I've spoken to a couple of people from CA. We have really good relationships with other organisations in terms of the debt space. But what that website is there to do is provide support and help to lots of different organisations. So we don't make that website what we call locked. All the information upon it is shareable. If you want to use that content, if you've got a query and you want to send it on to somebody you're working with, a resident within your community, it's deliberately designed so that information is able to be shared and able to be used. Can I take the next slide, please? I won't say any names in case I get it wrong again. So I said I'd just tell you a little bit more about Money Helper, just so that you understand what that is. Some of you may know the Money and Pension Service. We've been around one way or another for about 15 years. So we were set up by the former Labour government following the financial crash in 2007-2008. And some of you might know us by our old name, the Money Advice Service, or MAS, as some of you'll be aware of. But when we relaunched the website 2 years ago during COVID, we did that because we know that lots and lots of people now, we have 2 big contact centres, free phone telephone numbers, people can speak to us digitally, people can speak to us over the telephone, people can speak to us at events like today. But we know lots and lots of people want to use the website. They want to use that digital information, whether it's on their laptop, whether it's on their smartphone, whether it's on their computer. So one of the things I always try and get across about Money Helper is that is genuinely one of the biggest money assistance websites in the country. And people always say to me, well, you would say that, James, you work for Maps. So what's the numbers? So the numbers for that website is it takes about 2 million views a month. On average, per year, we get about 24 to 25 million views onto that website. And from that website, from that engagement, we'll engage directly with about 1.9 to 2 million people a year. That means somebody speaks to one of our 2 contact centres, or somebody sends a digital query or a WhatsApp query. You can see those are pretty big numbers. Now I know there's lots of organisations of all sorts of different sizes, small, medium and large, in the audience today, doing great work. Our focus, and the reason I'm here today, is what we're about trying to do is partnering with organisations, supplying that information and making sure that you can use and access that information you're aware that's what's available. I don't work, as I said to a couple of CA people today, for the funding or the commissioning or the grants team, so I'm sorry I can't write anybody a cheque if they ask at any point in the afternoon. But what I can provide today is the information that we supply for free and all the information that's therein. I'm going to break down the session today in a couple of ways. We're going to have a look just at the kind of general information that we have and how that works. And then we're going to have a little bit of a look at the cost of living information, because I've been here since lunchtime. I was in Manchester this morning with another organisation, and there's been lots and lots of pressure on everybody in the room, all the residents, all the communities across the North West in terms of cost of living. So we've built some extra sections about cost of living. Can I just move on one more slide, please? I'm just going to take a glass of water because I've been speaking a lot today. So, for those of you who have not seen the website before, that's the introductory page to Money Helper. That's what it looks like. And I think you can see straight away that that looks very different to a normal government website. If you go on some of the government teams that we work with, people like Cabinet Office or Treasury or even DWP, very often their websites are very formal and quite off-putting. Lots of tiny black and white writing. They're not very easy to navigate. We try and do very differently to that. We try and make the website look very differently. I think you would probably agree that doesn't look like a normal government website. And within the website itself, we try and make sure that it's really easy to use, because if you don't make this information easy to use, these resources, these content, these tools, then people just turn off. They don't engage with the website properly, they don't use the information. So what we do in terms of the website, is a couple of points I'll just show you in terms of that page. And I'll just move that so I can see both. So there's a couple of things I'll just point out to you straight away. You can see in the far right hand corner there's the HM government logo. That's there deliberately. Why is that there? Because we're not trying to sell somebody anything. That website is completely free, it's completely independent. We're not a comparison site, we're not like Compare the Market, we're not there to push a product or push a sale or push anything in any shape or form. So when we did the market research with 15,000 consumers right across the UK, including about 1,500 from the North West, that was one of the things that people said to us straight away that they wanted to see. The other thing you can see just above that HM government logo is there's a little button that says Talk to Us Live. So we want to encourage people to work with our 2 contact centres. If a resident or somebody you're working with or somebody in the community comes and speaks to us, or you speak to us yourselves, it's always free. It's an 0800 number to speak to us, but we're finding more and more that lots of people, particularly people in their teens or their 20s or their 30s and their 40s, perhaps not people like me in my 50s, I'm the telephone generation, but lots of younger people now want to speak to us digitally. Whoever you speak to, you'll get people based in the UK. We don't believe in sending those queries off to Sweden or Norway or Portugal or halfway around the world, because we want people to engage with people who are empathetic and based here in the UK. They have a knowledge of UK finance, they have a knowledge of the challenges that are going on in UK society, including cost of living at the moment. So that's one of the big features that we do. And then in terms of the actual website itself, I'm just going to tell this a little bit more so I can talk and speak. You can see we break the website then down into 8 sections. So those sections are in the royal blue colour at the top: benefits, everyday money, family and care, homes, money troubles, pension and retirement, savings and work. Now I haven't got time today in 25 minutes to go through all 8 sections, so what I agreed with Christine is we'd have a look at a couple of key sections, including about cost of living. So can I take the next slide, please? So one of the sections that's really, really popular and gets lots and lots of traffic is everyday money. And the reason I've just shown you this section is that it helps understand how we break that information down page by page. So you can see there's 3 columns there in terms of that particular page. On the right-hand column, a section says tools. I'm going to come back to that because tools are interactive. They give an output for one particular person. On the left-hand and the middle column, 2 sections, one saying banking, budgeting, buying and running a car, credit purchases, and the other saying insurance, types of credit, and everyday money. Why do we list all those sections out? Again, we want people to find it really easy to navigate to what their query is. So once they get onto a section, we try and break down the key challenges that people traditionally speak to us about. And one of the things I often get asked is things like, why do you cover buying and running a car? Well, the reality is, if you live in London, you might not need a car, but practically everybody else across the country, lots and lots of families, lots of households will have a car. So we try and cover off big costs that people may have. I appreciate not everybody has a car, but we try and cover off big costs that people might have, and we don't try and live in a blue sky world where we pretend that those kind of costs don't occur. So if you broke down those sections, if you jumped onto them, what you find in terms of each section, there's quite a lot of content. When the content is written, we keep it really straightforward. We don't believe in writing reams and reams and reams of pages. Content will usually be 2 or 3 pages long. Often they'll have a slide or a visual in. We like to use videos, so there's quite a lot of YouTube videos on there. Again, if there's a video on our website, it's not 45 minutes long, it's not an hour long. It'll be 5 minutes long, it'll be 8 minutes long, it'll be 10 minutes long. It'll give you lots of information about one topic, and it'll give you information from people who really know what they're talking about. So one of the sections that we're getting a lot of traffic at the moment, everybody in the room I'm sure is aware how much interest rates have risen, what kind of pressures that's put on people, particularly their housing, their mortgage costs or rental rates going up. If you go on to the YouTube video about homes and renting, that's presented by a contact and a friend of mine, a guy called Sean Finnegan. Sean, if he was in the room, would be fine with me saying this. He's a proper Scouser. He doesn't sound like a bank manager. He sounds like somebody who comes from Liverpool. He works for one of the biggest housing associations in the north of England. Spent 30 years working with that housing association. He knows lots and lots of things about rent and can communicate that in a way that's really engaging for people. So that's how we try and get the information across. We're not trying to be super formal. We have this concept about talking about money. We want people to talk about money in an open and honest way. And that's quite a challenge in British society because we love talking about everything but money. So we'll talk about the weather. I've talked about the weather to lots of people today. We'll talk about what happened in the football or what happened on the television last night. But for lots and lots of the people that we engage with, actually having an open, honest money conversation is something they find really, really challenging. So part of what we're trying to do is when we engage with people, as I said to you 5 minutes ago, be very empathetic, very straightforward. When people speak to us, we're not able to wave a magic wand, as nobody is in the room is. But what we're trying to do is focus on the solution and how that we can improve their position and improve their money journey, not focus on the problems or perhaps poor decisions that have been occurred in the past. Okay, next slide, please. So I mentioned to you I'd look at some of the tools that we have today, and what I agreed with Christine and with CVS before I came today, to look at some of the key tools that have the most information that's relevant. So we're going to come to the cost of living section in a moment, but one of the tools that gets the most traffic at the moment for us is the budget planner. First thing I would say about the tools, if anybody uses the tools from any part of the UK on our site, it's completely confidential. We don't share that information with anybody. It doesn't get shared with their employer, it doesn't get shared with a credit reference agency or their bank or their building society. It's important that people, when they talk to us, have confidence in the conversation and the information that they're providing to us. People often say to me, oh James, you work for a big government department, surely you share that information with DWP, that'd be really interesting. And the answer is no. DWP have asked. But if we did that, it would break that confidence. So from our side, when people take that information, it's in complete confidence. Now, what we do with our budget planner, first of all, we try and encourage people to budget. I go out and speak to lots of audiences. I also speak to lots of audiences with employers. And if I go out and speak to an audience, say with an employer with something like a co-op group who run lots of retail stores, if I go in a room and there's 300 people and I say, how many people have a budget in this room? 290 will put their hands up, nearly everybody. But we know from the research that we do that that's not true. Lots and lots of people don't have a budget. So we try and encourage them to budget. We're not asking you or your communities or the people that you work with to use our budget planner. If you do, that's fantastic. But what we want to encourage is people to get into that process. So they know what their money coming in is, crucially they know what their money going out is. Now how we run our budget planner is we start by asking for all the positives, what people's income is, what their salary is, what their benefits are, what their payments are, any savings they might have. And then we break down all the outgoings, which you're very used to. You know, what's their rent, what's their council tax, what's their mortgage payment, what's their gas, what's their electricity. We also try and focus really hard in that budget planner on the smaller items that people tend to forget about. So sometimes I'll go out and speak to an audience and people say to me, I can do that change if I really wanted to on a piece of A4 paper. But the reality is they forget most of the smaller repeat bills. So they'll forget things like they've got a mobile phone for themselves and that's on contract for 2 years, and that's got their partner on it, and it's got their teenage daughter on it for safety reasons. Or they'll forget that they've got Sky Sports Premier League, or they'll forget that they've got Netflix to watch Game of Thrones. All of these costs are important, they build up. When we look at people's mobile phone bills, it's not unusual for people to have a smartphone bill that's £35 to £40 per phone. If you've got 3 phones, that's nearly £120 a month. Times that by 12 over a year, it's about £1,400. Average length of the contract's about 3 years, you're looking at north of £4,000. People forget about those kind of costs. So we really encourage them on our budget plans to do that. And then the other bit we do, once we've done all that, the budget planner, I don't do it live today, but build a very visual output for people. Show them whether they've got a deficit budget, whether they need to make a cut back on some costs, or whether they've got a straightforward budget. But the bit that we do then at the end is very different to say what a bank or a credit card company would do, is we start making suggestions about how they can cut some costs, some practical suggestions. So if they've got a big mobile phone bill, we will say, can you go to Tesco's? Can you take £10 a month off every mobile phone bill you've got? You've got Netflix. Do you actually use it? You know, we often speak to people on the phone and we go, oh, I had it for Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones finished last year. I've never used it since, but I still pay the £8 every month. So we try and give practical suggestions. We're not the Grinch. We're not here to take all the nice things out of people's lives. But what we are trying to do is make sure that they're managing their money as effectively as they can and using that money in the best possible way. Okay, next slide, please. So I said today we'd talk about cost of living, and one of the challenges that we've found, and I've talked to lots of people in the room today, is what an impact cost of living has had, the inflationary challenges on lots and lots of different services, goods, prices over the last 15 months. I've done this job one way or another for about 30 years. I've never seen these kind of rises consistently across the board. As a government department, what we're trying to do is get people to make proactive decisions. So we do lots of research every month, and we know that there's still about 6 to 7 million people in the UK who haven't made any significant changes. By that I mean cutting costs, really trying to move forward their position. What they've done is they've put their head in the sand and they're watching their debt and they're watching their arrears try and start to build. So we've named our cost of living section Find Your Way Forward. Why is it called Find Your Way Forward? Because we know that everybody's circumstances are different. You can have 2 people who are housing association residents, they live on the same street, next door to each other. From the outside, they can look very, very similar. But one might have a young family and children, one person might be retired and have a completely different circumstance. So what we're trying to do with our section of cost of living is get people to start making those proactive decisions, start looking at where they can cut costs and acknowledging what the position is. And we've also built a new tool that helps people think about that. Okay, next slide, please. So, if I'd been talking to you 3 years ago, if I'd come and spoken to you 3 years ago during COVID, one of the tasks that we're given as a government department by DUP, by Cabinet Office, by the government, is if there's something new that happens from a financial perspective to UK society, it's our job to try and provide information, guidance, assistance with that process. 3 years ago, the new section would have all been about COVID. We've had lots of things about furlough, how to make sure that people's incomes were being protected as far as they possibly can. We've closed that section down for obvious reasons. But the new section that we've built over the last 15 months is this section that I said we call Find Your Way Forwards. Now really, it's about trying to help people with squeezed incomes. The reality is, if people have had a rise in their benefits, even if they've had a pay rise, and lots of people haven't had a pay rise, inflation is outstripping those rises. So, you know, I was just talking to one of the colleagues from Citizens Advice about the cost of, you know, baked beans. Baked beans haven't gone up by 5% or 10%, they've gone up by 50%. Nobody's getting a 50% rise in their pension if they're retired. Nobody's getting a 50% rise, in their pay. Nobody's getting a 50% rise in their benefits. So the reality is people are having to make fairly tough choices about what's important to them, what they need, and the things that perhaps they can cut back on. We've also created in that section some extra information, which is about supporting people with job loss or redundancy, because we're finding that unfortunately some organisations, both in the public and private sector, just aren't making it through. People are losing their jobs on a substantial scale. And we've also provided tailored money for the self-employed. And why have we done that? We're finding that people are self-employed, people who perhaps are joiners or decorators or taxi drivers, they're taking a double whammy. Their income's going down. Let's say they're a taxi driver, the number of people taking taxis is reducing, so the amount of money they're earning is reducing, but their costs are going up. Diesel has spiralled in cost, or petrol has spiralled in cost over the last 12 to 15 months. So we've created new sections, and again, I haven't got time to take you through all of those sections, but you can see on the right-hand side, we break down all of those sections, coping with squeezing incomes, coping if you're self-employed, coping if a partner or somebody in your household loses their job, in the sections on the right. And we've also hired in some extra people, because the thing that we've noticed, even more than during COVID, we brought in a number of people who've got really strong mental health backgrounds, is that the pressure that people are feeling financially has risen very significantly. And we wanted people within our contact centres who had that level of experience and that level of knowledge so they could deal with those queries really effectively. Take the next slide, please. So I mentioned to you we created a new tool and to help prioritise bills, to help with cost of living. We don't create tools all the time. When we create a tool, it takes a lot of IT resource, a lot of effort to make them work really, really slickly. So a tool like the budget planner we've had up and running for a number of years. We work on that all the time. But this is a new tool that we've built, and it's completely shareable, that helps people prioritise bills. Now, why do we need to help people prioritise bills? Why do residents, why do communities need that assistance? The reality is when times get tough, people don't always make the right choices. They'll pay the bills of whoever's chasing them the hardest. So whoever sends them the most red letters, sends them the most nasty texts, phones them up the most, a lot of people will pay that bill first. So this is why we created a new tool to help people prioritise bills. Now this works very differently to the budget planner. The budget planner really is taking all that information in about incomings and outgoings and building an output. This tool is a little bit different. I can't get every single bill on the page there on the screen, but what it does basically is it asks people to click very quickly on all the bills that they might have. So it might ask them to click on things like their rent, their council tax, their water, their gas, their electricity, their broadband bill, their Netflix bill, things they don't think about. They've got things like car parking fines. And then once they've done that, very quickly, within 20 or 30 seconds, it will build an order top to bottom of what their bills are. What will it prioritise? It will always prioritise keeping a roof over their head. So it will prioritise paying their rent, paying their lodgings, paying their mortgage if they have a mortgage, and then everything that makes that home occupiable and safe. Paying their gas bill, paying their electricity bill, paying their water bill. What will it deprioritise? To be quite honest with you, it will deprioritise things that can be taken out of people's lives. So will it deprioritise things like local gym membership? Yes. Or Sky Sports Premier League, or Disney, or Netflix, or those kind of payments? Yes, it will. Now you can say to me, well James, you've built a list of all the things that that person, or that particular family, or that particular household has to pay. That's great, but where are they going to get some extra help? How are they going to deal with that if they're looking at your website at 10 o'clock on a Friday night and everywhere's closed? So what we do once we've built the order is we also give lots of extra information about how they can access additional support. So if, for example, you clicked on something such as mortgage payments, lots of people are struggling with their mortgages at the moment, it would explain what supports have been agreed by the government with the lenders, and a scheme that's called Support for Mortgage Interest that helps people who are starting to get behind. Again, totally shareable, and a page that we're getting massive traffic to at the moment. That and the budget planner are the two biggest asks at the moment. Which we will more to get towards the last few slides. I just mentioned at the start that we have some separate teams that take that information from our contact centres. If people want money guidance from us, and I appreciate that people in the room that also provide money guidance, our teams are open every working day of the year, Monday to Friday, 8 till 6 in the morning. You can also speak to us on the WhatsApp chat, or you can speak to us digitally, and we're finding more and more people choose to do that. Next slide, please. I also just wanted to mention pensions today. I think one of the things that we found in the cost of living challenges and all the financial wellbeing pressure that people feel at the moment is pensions sometimes are getting a little bit forgotten in the current circumstances. Our name is Money and Pension Service. We hire specific people who come from a really, really strong pensions background. They'll work for someone like Aviva or the pensions regulator. I used to work for Scottish Widows, for example. And those kind of queries are a little bit different to money management, to debt queries, to arrears queries. So we have a specific group of people who take those queries, help people with conversations about payments into their pensions, use of their pension pots, national insurance payments towards their state pension. Next slide, please. And I promised I'd try and end on time. I've just had the 5-minute warning. So the final bit that I always try and say to people is everything that we're here to provide about and discuss with organisations or discuss with consumers is about giving people free guidance, free information. We're not here to preach to people. We don't tell people what to do. We want to help them make the best choice that they possibly can in that circumstance. Lots of diagnostic tools, lots of calculators online, lots of information that people can access. One of the things that we know from looking at our information is that two of the busiest times of the week for us are when practically everybody in this room will be closed. And that's Friday evening and Sunday evening. Why is that? Friday evening is the end of the normal working week. Lots of people that have got pressures financially will look at information from organisations like us. Sunday is the start of the new week, or they're looking forward into Monday morning. So it's important that people can access information that's helpful, that's useful, and that they find up to date and timely. Support's available online or over the phone. I know I've mentioned lots of online engagement today, but we do make a big effort to have lots of people who can engage with people on the telephone and speak to people in a really empathetic way. It's important. Not everybody likes to do things digitally. People like to do things over the phone as well. We don't do many face-to-face things because 500 people can't cover everything across the UK. So when I come out on days like today, it's probably when you see us face-to-face. And then right at the bottom, there's just the final information in terms of how you can access us onto Money Helper, what our WhatsApp address is for any consumer queries, and our free phone telephone helpline. I think I'm close to time, aren't I?